welcome everybody. It's so wonderful to have you all here this evening. We're going to just talk a little bit about kindergarten readiness and what to expect. We're going to start by welcoming Melissa Ribkin from the Samus Foundations to give us a few words, and then we'll, after that point, Vicki Smolke. She's a parent education senior adjunct professor that has been at the Bellevue College for about 30 years. And then Margaret Farlin-Forbes, who is the pre-K education coordinator for the JCC, will give more of a presentation, and then we'll have the opportunity for questions and answers. So welcome, Melissa. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's really great to be here. My name is Melissa Ribkin. I'm the Director of Day School Strategy at the Samus Foundation, and we're excited to be sponsoring this evening. I'm excited to be with you all here tonight on behalf of the Samus Foundation. Samus is the largest Jewish philanthropy in Washington state with a mission to support Jewish continuity through Jewish education. The foundation provides about $3 million annually to 7 local Jewish day schools in the Seattle area to ensure that Jewish day school education is accessible to all children and families, and that our schools continue to boast high quality secular and Jewish education. As parents, you're all taking a very important step tonight. Getting your child ready for kindergarten and their journey is crucial, and this is just the beginning, and it's a lot of fun. There are so many wonderful educational opportunities available to your children, and tonight you're going to learn about, a myriad of options, and among them are some fantastic Jewish day schools. I'd like to give a shout out to 2 of them who are here tonight: the Jewish Day School located in Bellevue and the Seattle Hebrew Academy located in Capitol Hill. Whether you've always been curious or maybe tonight will spark an interest, I hope you'll explore whether joining a day school community is right for your family. With that in mind, I would like to invite you to join Samus and Parent Map for another webinar tomorrow night on raising A+ human beings and crafting school cultures of academic excellence and AT kindness. This is based on a book by Bruce Powell and Ron Wolfson as they discuss what shapes the culture of schools and youth programs, including programs like the JCC, to elevate the development of A+ human beings, which I know we all want that for our children. Anyway, anyone who registers for this free event will get a book as well, and I'll put the link to that in the chat. I hope you have a wonderful evening tonight, and best of luck, best wishes on this exciting journey ahead.
I'm muted, I apologize. Thank you, Melissa. Again, it was really great to have you here. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Vicki. Welcome, Vicki.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Carrie. We all want what's best for our children, and that's why you're here this evening, whether you're a parent and or a teacher, whatever your role. So I thank you for coming and giving me this opportunity. I want to be honest, my focus is and has been with infants and toddlers for most of my career, so I was a bit nervous to address the needs of what children might need for kindergarten. However, as I began to prepare what I might share, I realized the foundation of how we support children's social and emotional development is basically the same. We just need to continue to change with them as they grow and change, and as we both navigate what is yet to come, preparing ourselves and them to be open to new possibilities. I believe that in our world today, where academic skills are often viewed as the priority, social emotional skill development is also a priority, is valued, and is on the mind of educators and parents. We found ourselves worrying more about all areas of children's development during this pandemic. I trust in the resilience of children and their resources to adapt. If we're giving the message to them in a variety of ways that says, we can figure this out together, this is one of the many healthy strategies for social and emotional growth for children. A continuous growing body of research indicates that social and emotional skills children gain or don't gain before they enter kindergarten have a profound effect on their lifelong journey. And now we need to be careful of not once again going to the extreme and adding that to our worry along with the children's academic skills. We can give them support and strategies to develop strong skills, to better understand themselves and others, and to develop strong and healthy relationships. It has been in process from birth, and we want to keep it in the forefront as children move from early learning environments to kindergarten and elementary school. Yes, the emotional, social, and behavioral competence of young children is a strong predictor of academic performance in early elementary school. And yes, science has established a compelling link between social emotional development and behavior and school success. So social skills that have been identified as essential for academic success include, and I know this group is going to be familiar, getting along with others, parents, teachers, peers, following directions, identifying and regulating one's emotions and behavior, thinking of appropriate solutions to conflict, and persisting on task, encouraging and engaging in social conversation. And when I say encouraging, because I think children are capable of taking that role too. And cooperative play, correctly interpreting others' behaviors and emotions, feeling good about oneself and others. And yes, all are absolutely important and are different for each child. So now the question is, how do we do this in the best way possible? Well, I would first suggest that we continue to do what we believe is right for early learning experiences. Many articles reference that a child must be ready to learn, and I want to emphasize that they're born ready to learn. So really what we want to focus on is not getting in the way of their continued urges to be interested, curious, motivated, free to explore ideas and theories, and allow them to be persistent in these urges. Involve them in all that we want them to learn, and most importantly, what they want to learn. Allow time to slow down and process what they are experiencing and learning. Supporting their social and emotional development is the foundation of promoting healthy learning in all areas. And in the best practices, social emotional learning is a core component of all areas of curriculum and not a separate practice. We will best promote social and emotional learning if we start with building a healthy and reciprocal relationship with each child, understanding and accepting who they are. We really want and need to listen and notice the many ways that they're trying to connect with us and others. Yes, they still may need help in learning how to connect that fits for the other person. We want to stay interested and curious about what they're doing, saying, and feeling. We want to reflect back and acknowledge in a way that allows them to be truly seen, heard, and understood. You'll notice I'm repeating several of these things because I think it's vital that it sinks into all of us. And I've been doing this for a long time, but I still need reminding. I believe that this is the model for social and emotional development, and we need to keep it a priority. Sorry about that. What I have described is a lot to address, and it takes time and energy, as it has all during infancy, toddlerhood, and now in the final preschool years before kindergarten, and continuing once they are in kindergarten, and hopefully throughout their education, which I hope is for a lifetime of learning. We want to make sure we're building the foundation of social and emotional strength and skills as they move to that next exciting part of their growth and development. There will certainly be bumps and slippery slopes, and maybe losing our way for a bit of time on this new journey with them. And you as parents and teachers will have new challenges just like the children will. So here's some examples of how social and emotional development skills can be continued in school and at home, and the academic skills will grow as well, and I think a more authentic manner. Not all the strategies will be happening, of course, all at once. We need to trust the next community that they will be a part of to continue to incorporate all or most of these strategies into their curriculum. It will look different, And I think you will see the value of these approaches for children not only heading to kindergarten, but again, as lifelong learners. We want to believe in the competence, and those of you who've known me for a while know this is kind of my bottom line or top of the line thinking. We want to believe in the competence and capabilities of every child, as well as the capabilities and competence of parents and teachers and caregivers connecting with children. We want to create an environment where learning opportunities unfold in a natural and inviting manner, without rushing from one activity to another, because each transition is also a learning experience. We want to provide a safe, challenging, and predictable environment whenever possible, but also leaving room for those moments of surprise and things that we weren't expecting. Share the power of making and follow their lead when you can. It's, again, easier said than done, still practicing that. If a child knows you care about what they're doing and learning, they will be more confident in what they can do and often take on more challenges on their own. And when you notice and talk about a child's interest, you're helping them develop their self-awareness of what they're interested in and can be interested in, which can bring in many more possibilities of skills and areas of knowledge. We want to, of course, offer consistency and limits, to offer times of freedom to explore and to have uninterrupted interactions. Time to slow down the pace so that they can process what they are doing and feeling and thinking. We want to be careful to not let our agendas of what they should be learning override their interest, as there will be academic skills to be learned in their interests if we look carefully. We want to be careful of not pushing them to do or try something that they might not be ready for academically, emotionally, or socially. Of course, they will have to do things they don't want to do, and that is when we want to acknowledge the protest and give them tools to speak their minds respectfully and still protest. That respect must start with us. We want to be there to encourage their efforts more than the outcome or product, honor where they are now, and reflect on what's been gained to get there. Big and little steps towards a skill and the layers of skills involved. We want to support the process of problem solving rather than fixing the issue. Decide with observation and waiting to see how much and when to intervene. Allow time to just be, both for yourselves as a teacher or a parent or both, and children. Some of our most creative ideas unfold in those moments of quietness, alone time to daydream. And unscheduled time can lead to new interests as well. We all get overwhelmed when too much is expected of us. We want to help them learn to recognize and understand the difference between intrinsic, that's self-motivation, and extrinsic motivation in yourself and children. Over the past 4 decades, experimental and field research guided by self-determination theory has found that intrinsic motivation to predict enhanced learning, performance, creativity, optimal development, and psychological wellness. People who are intrinsically motivated are therefore more likely to be successful. I hesitate to even use the word successful because some of us, it triggers what we think to believe true about success. They do achieve better results. And again, we want to think about the process of getting to those results rather than just the results themselves. They're committed. They have a stronger sense of personal commitment. Persistent. They perform more persistently or are less likely to quit when facing difficulties. Sometimes I think we have to also remember when it's okay to quit. Creativity. They are more creative and more likely to come up with novel ideas and solutions. We want to be their advocate and biggest supporter with encouragement rather than praise. And yes, anytime children move on to the next level of development and experience with growing independence, we are anxious and we're going to worry. They too feel uncertain. And again, you can figure it out together. So we want to celebrate this next step in their journey of learning and growing, because there is always something to celebrate, including learning from those mistakes that we all make. And we want to demonstrate that we as adults learn from our mistakes too. And in closing, I want to share a message from Emily Kaiser and her article on 4 tips for motivating and teaching motivation to children that I read recently. And she says, as teachers and parents, we can help guide our children to enjoy the journey that they take as they reach the stars that they've painted in their sky of dreams. Thank you for listening. I look forward to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Vicki. We really appreciate you being here. That was wonderful. So we're going to continue on with Margaret Farlin-Forbes. She, again, as I mentioned, was a pre-K teacher here for the last, I believe, 6 years. And this year is also our pre-K education coordinator. Margaret, you should be able to share your screen.
Yes, fingers crossed. All right. Okay, here we go. All righty. I think we've done it. Okay, so thanks guys again for being here. And Vicki, that was beautiful. Thank you. So again, we're going to transition to talking about school readiness, specifically getting ready for kindergarten and what that kind of looks like. So tonight we're going to cover what it means to be ready for school. What does it mean to be kindergarten ready? How can a preschool program prepare for this? How can families prepare for this? And what school is right for my child? So let's get to it. What does it mean to be ready for school? So when we think about school readiness as opposed to kindergarten readiness, we are thinking about the journey rather than just the next step. So this kind of helps us cultivate children who are lifelong learners. They know how to seek out and find knowledge and how to ask the right questions, how to advocate on their behalf, as opposed to simply acquiring the next set of skills for the next grade. Most of the habits that make children successful in school are social, emotional in nature, and are developed in the early childhood years through quality social interactions and quality experiences at preschool. So school readiness, what is that? Is your child able to take turns? Can they solve simple social problems? Are they able to follow a 2-step direction? Can they climb equipment safely? Can they get dressed on their own? Are they able to identify and label emotions? Do they listen to friends and teachers? Are they able to handle frustrations without harming others? So one of the things to keep in mind is that children will develop these skills, these milestones that we need them to do in kindergarten by having their social emotional skills developed. So in order to learn their ABCs, they can't necessarily learn that without being socially regulated. But the social regulation, that's what's most important, because that's going to calm them. They're going to be in the right mindset, and then they're going to get all that information. So just something to keep in mind. So what does it mean to be kindergarten ready? Being kindergarten ready, by contrast, usually describes the acquisition or rote skills that one believes are important for a child to have mastered before entering kindergarten. So these might include writing their name, recognizing the alphabet, recognizing numbers, counting to 20, understanding letters and sounds, and using scissors. They are not knowing how to read, counting to 100, knowing how to spell, and knowing how to do addition and subtraction. And I feel like this is super important just to kind of pause and let that soak in, because I think as a culture and society, we in the last 25 to 30 years have kind of put this pressure on children in the early years that they need to have these things ready for kindergarten. That's never really been the case, but it's been this weird pressure where they have to learn to read, that preschool is the new kindergarten, and that's not. And we're seeing that the research and the studies are showing that that's actually harmful to children. So again, it's really just remembering the importance of play and open-endedness, and that they don't need to know how to read before kindergarten. Sure, it's great, but not necessary at all. Simple things of writing their name, having them be able to do their zipper, counting to 20, recognizing the alphabet, they're golden, they're good to go. So habit versus skills. One's intelligence is the sum of one's habit of mind. We do not want behaviors, we want habits. Learning the behaviors of problem solving, for example, is not the goal. We want to habituate effective problem solving. Performing a behavior once is not enough. We want children to appreciate the value and develop the, I always have trouble with this word, so excuse me, proficiency, skillful problem solving, and using a repertoire of mindful strategies applied to a variety of settings. So again, we are not teaching skills, we're teaching habits, because in order to learn those skills, they need to learn the habit of learning the skill. And again, just like Vicki said, it's coming from them. They have to want to do it because then they're interested and they will absorb more. But if they're just going through the motions, just like adults, we're not going to absorb that, and neither is the child. So focusing attention, communicating clearly, collaborating with others towards a shared goal, thinking strategically and creatively, noticing relationships and making connections. Those are all skills and habits that they develop. Again, those skills develop through those habits. So, and our preschool does a wonderful job aiding in that development through open-endedness and the provocations. There's this amazing book, Mind in the Making, and it covers some of these skills. I encourage you to read it. Our faculty has, and it's just great. So how does preschool prepare for this transition? So we believe the goal of an early childhood program is to help children learn how to learn. Children are not these vessels that we are just constantly filling knowledge into. They're fully formed and they are ready to go right at birth. So we believe that it happens best when children feel a connection to the learning process, whether that is by initiating an area of interest, developing a theory based on a provocation, or being involved in documentation of a project. Supporting and strict motivation to learn and guiding children to test their theories to discover an answer rather than simply being told the answer. So we hold very true to our hearts in our school that when a child asks, what is this? We don't ever answer, oh, it's this. We always throw it back to the child and ask them what they think and then help facilitate and guide that navigation to that answer. So yes. Sorry, I lost my place. Opportunities to explore literacy, mathematics, science, social emotional intelligence, and more are offered through planned possibilities as well as spontaneous learning opportunities. So again, I'm sure you are all well versed by now in provocations in our school, and those are carefully planned and curated every single day following the interests of your child. So a lot of the provocations are individualized and tailored to those interests. So for instance, right now, a bunch of my preschool classrooms are very interested in storytelling. So every day there's just layers and layers and different threads that they're following. And it's so exciting because that's where the real magic is happening. And it's crazy because the children are writing. They are writing stories. They are working on their letters, but it's not just having them sit down and do some kind of worksheet, because children don't like that and they don't absorb and they don't retain. But this is amazing because they're sounding out words. They're starting to blend the letters together, which is emergent literacy and early reading. So that's super exciting and it's happening organically.
And I think that it's wonderful that it's happening organically, but again, that's not the focus. We want the focus, especially during these times with COVID, that social emotional is so important. And it's what's most necessary for these children to be successful in their journey through school.
Thank you, for sure. So, and that's actually a really good segue into looking at, and I'm sorry, it's a little cut off, or no, it isn't cut off actually, but a segue into how we prepare for this transition. And we're gonna look specifically at one classroom and their literacy. So when we think of literacy, we're not necessarily just speaking of letters in the alphabet. Mark making, expressive marks, pictures, that is a form of literacy, and that is something that we support in our school. And again, that comes with the social emotional, where they are communicating through their pictures, their expressive marks. So storytelling through drawings, as the children in room 101 explored the values and ideas surrounding the custom of touch leash, they were invited to translate their understanding and ideas onto paper by drawing each time that they felt sorry. Avid proponents of using drawing as a language of expression, the teachers in the classroom help communicate the children's ideas through the marks made on the paper, further reinforcing the social emotional concept. Through the year, the children are offered many different ways to use drawing as a means to communicate tell stories, and better understand learning opportunities in the classroom. You can kind of see they drew their friends and their family and how they were feeling. So again, this is always happening in the pre-K classrooms. We are very supportive of that emergent literacy and the social emotional work, and they really beautifully blend together. Another experience that we've observed, and a great example of how our preschool can prepare children for the transition, is a sled project. And this is kind of a great example of the spontaneous exploration that can happen. So the children in a pre-K classroom engaged in a spontaneous exploration of friction, speed, and other scientific concepts as they created a sled one morning and planned to slide down the hill. The project began on a particularly cold morning, which we believe may have prompted the idea to build a sled with a box brought into the room that morning. Of course, they needed to test the sled. However, while doing so, they encountered challenges as to which surface was most supportive of the sled. They tried the grassy hill, the rocky blacktop, and eventually the smooth green slide. So this group of children worked collaboratively. They did perspective taking. They exchanged ideas. They had executive function. They worked towards a common goal, and they had emergent science and STEM. And it was just a really beautiful moment and a great testament to how when children have it in themselves to want to do something, and when they are interested in something, there's so much going on. So it's really taking a moment to kind of slow down and notice and see that they are capable and they can guide their learning, and we just have to be open to it.
And this was all through an experience of play on the back hill. That's
Yes.
really amazing.
It is incredible. So another thing that we do to prepare the children for kindergarten or school readiness is long-term learning threads. And so I have a couple of pieces of documentation to share with you based on some long-term learning. Both of these projects lasted about 2 to 3 months. So you can see that we definitely flushed it out. So one of my favorite experiences as a teacher was one year we had a fully functioning lemonade stand. And so how this came to be was that we had children who were really interested in water, and they loved getting bowls and filling them up, and just like we would say, oh, maybe we should wait. And they had their own agenda, and that was great. So we'd be seeing them and they'd be filling them. So we thought about how we could make it in a way that it was a little more productive and a little less safe of slipping on the floor. And so we thought we might add lemons. That was the catalyst to this amazing learning thread. So we set up lemons, and these children are like, we should make lemonade. And then from there, when you think lemonade and you're a small child, typically you're like, a lemonade stand. And that's kind of what happened. And so the children wanted to make lemonade. And because we have a lot of future business people in our classroom, they wanted to sell it. They have the spirit, and they wanted to bring it to the masses. And so they basically came up with the idea of having a lemonade stand and making lemonade. So following that, we wanted to scaffold that. And so we offered them materials. So we gathered for morning meeting the next week, and we talked about what they needed. And so they brainstormed. So some of the children said that they wanted lemons, and that they needed cups or a sign and jars to put the lemonade in, and they needed sugar, and they just exhausted it and came up with all of these different things that they needed. And so then we offered them provocations to support and encourage that. So one day we did paper mache, and they learned about an art medium and how to do that. And they made paper mache lemons for like 3 days, and they painted them, they mixed the color, they did everything. For literacy, they wanted to make lemonade signs. And so they knew that they needed signage. And so they worked together, and you can kind of see it at the top. They made a lemonade sign for their stand. Other children realized that they needed some kind of currency. And so they made pretend money. Another child knew that they needed a cash register. And so they took recyclable materials and made a fully functioning register. And it was amazing. And it's on the next slide. And I am so proud of it, even though it's been 3 years, but I can't wait to show you. And there's some other children making some of the materials. So onto this fabulous cash register. these are all materials that were found. It was, I believe, a graham cracker box. And we took her to the studio and she grabbed the materials that she needed. There's tiles, some kind of loose part of metal, the graham cracker box, and butcher paper. And she spent, I remember, all morning constructing that. She detailed her plan, she came up with what she needed, and she executed it. So again, all of these life skills are organically happening and unfolding, and it's beautiful. And you can see the numeracy where she was labeling the numbers and putting them in order, touching on that number sense. It is amazing. And she was so proud, and you could just feel the joy coming from her.
And it's just wonderful to see, as parents, many times we just see the children playing and we don't really realize all those amazing things that they're learning. They're just having fun playing the lemonade stand and making their signs and all that. But we're seeing so much more that's happening through that play experience. And look at the social emotional, they wanted to raise money to give people that didn't have food. Those are the things that we want to instill in these children at that age. And all the other stuff will come, whether it's in preschool or as they get older. The social emotional piece is just so vitally important, and they're learning that through play.
For
Sorry
sure.
to interrupt, Margaret.
No, thank you. Keep doing it. It's great. And that's a great segue because Kahila is community. And so again, our lemonade stand brought out that social emotional in that community where they were gathering, they were inviting people. And like Carrie had said, that they were raising money for Sadaka, so their charity. And that was all on them. We didn't tell them, oh, well, this money should go to people who need it. They had seen people who lived under the I-90, no, not I-90, because that would be in the water, but one of the places on the highway, and they had noticed homeless people, and that also triggered that of wanting to help the people who didn't have homes, because that is a part of our community, unfortunately, and we do see that, and the children are very well aware of that, and they're so loving, and they so want to help those people. So, but back to this. So they made signs, and we called it guerrilla marketing, and they hustled so much that week. They invited everybody, and this is, of course, was before COVID, so they were allowed to go into the Greater J, and they worked so many members and invited them and came, and they really encouraged everyone just to come to the classroom, and it was going to be a Friday after community Shabbat, and so it was the place to be. The halls were buzzing, so it was very exciting. So the day finally came, and the children were so ecstatic and so excited, and their parents were coming, the Greater J were coming. And so this was kind of what the setup looked like. You can see, again, some of the literacy components. They made their lemonade. We got fancy. We had extra time. We made some cookies. It was an experience. And again, those baking and lemonade opportunities also are STEM opportunities because they're measuring. They are reading instructions. So they're hitting on a bunch of those life skills. So you can see that they made an open, a close sign. They really got into it. And so our dramatic play area became the actual fully functioning lemonade stand. And I don't have any pictures of the rest of the classroom, but we had this going on every Friday for about 2.5 months. So every Friday, oh yeah, go ahead.
As I say, I think the best part of this whole experience was the excitement that the children felt and how proud they were of themselves versus expecting other people to say, great job, or we're proud of you, but they were so excited and proud of what they had created. And those are the things we want to, again, instill in the children.
100%. Yeah, they were so excited, and it was just amazing. And they were so self-motivated too, because we never said like, oh, it's Friday, we're going to do our lemonade stand. We'd always would ask them like, do you want to do it? And eventually it fizzled out. We could tell that their interest was waning and they didn't want to do it anymore. And we respected that. But for about 2.5 months, every Friday we had our lemonade stand, or we were preparing for the lemonade stand. So here's the next slide. And just look at that face. That is a very happy child, a joyful child. And this is again pre-COVID. So that was another classroom coming. But it was just really beautiful because the children from the other classrooms came to support their friends. Again, touching on that social emotional, those friendships, those memories. We even had infants come with their teachers. Granted, they could not really purchase anything that they could consume, but the teachers did. And after everything was said and done, we raised a good chunk of money and we made a donation, and the children had so much ownership. They had total ownership, and that's really what made it so impactful. And I know I'm an adult, but even after all these years, that is my favorite memory, and I get so joyful thinking about it. And I like to think that the children also feel the same way. Moving forward to last year, here is another learning experience that kind of touches on long-term investigation and how it prepares your child. So after holiday break, when we came back, I mentioned, because we were talking about what we did over the break, that I received a sewing machine. Said sewing machine is still in the closet. That's okay. Children were excited about my gift. And so they wanted to learn how to sew. And we were excited about it, and we got the okay from Carrie, and we introduced plastic needles and plastic material. And so the children became fluent in that material and that tool. And after that, we thought about it, and again, we got the okay from Carrie if we could actually use real needles. And so that Monday we came back and we gave them a little piece of felt and a needle, and we modeled for them during morning meeting how to use that needle, and then they were off to it. And remarkably, no one got cut. Nobody stabbed themselves. It was all good because they had practice and they had that fluency. But we sewed for probably 2.5 to 3 months. It was just kind of an everyday thing. They would come in, they had their bags because we made sure that everything was separated for COVID. But they knew where their stuff lived, and they would grab it, they would work on their project, they put it away. But this needle is a great example of having individual work, but also supporting each other. Children would model for the other child who may not have those same set of skills. They would encourage them from far away. They would give each other things. Of course, we'd bag it and send it home, and then it was up to their parents because of COVID. But they worked on this for a long time. And it kind of transitioned. You can see some of the progress from one child in their purse. And needles are an amazing tool for, again, working on that pincer grasp, which is important for writing and that emergent literacy. And then very, very sweet, that social emotional. One of our students last year saw that the bag was broken and she wanted to mend the material and she wanted to take care of her community. And so she sewed our emergency bag. And it was one of the sweetest moments I witnessed last year because she was very concerned that the bag was broken and that the children wouldn't have Band-Aids and supplies if someone got hurt, and she took it upon herself to sew it. So it's, again, that feeling of taking care of others and being kind and looking out for one another. That is what is most important. And those are the skills that they're developing in preschool. And that is just one way amongst 1,000 ways that they prepare. So, yeah. And then how can families help children be ready? Read to your child every single day. There is so much and so many studies that say that they obtain their vocabulary that way. The research shows we know this to be true. So really, truly read to your child every day. Make it part of your routine. Allow children to help with daily routines and chores. Children love to have jobs and they love to be a part of what you're doing. And plus, it saves time for you. So kudos to that. Support your child's development of self-help skills such as zipping the coat, putting on their shoes, taking care of being responsible for their belongings. Stay in communication with your children's preschool teachers so that you can support what they are doing in the classroom and have those conversations at home. Again, we are in partnership with you guys, so really take advantage of that. Trust the pace in which your child is developing. I know the struggle is real of not comparing your child. I am a first-time mom, and I have this mindset as a parent and as an education coordinator where I know, like, oh, we don't compare our children, but at home I'm like, oh my gosh, and I know how hard it is to not do that. But really, truly try. They will develop at their own pace. They will get where they need to be. So no worries, you're doing great. Do your research about schools and find the right fit for your family. And I think that's it. So thank you guys so much. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and turn it over to Carrie.
Sorry, my internet keeps on going out. Thank you, Margaret. That was wonderful. So now, we have a couple different educators here. We have Vicki again. We have Margaret. We have Sean O'Callahan. I hope I said that right, from the Mercer Island School District. And then we also have Melissa, who's the kindergarten teacher here at the J. So at this point, we're going to open it up to questions. If you want to put them in the chat box. Jenna Sitman, who is in the development team at the J, will be reading them. And then between the three panelists, we'll do our best to answer those questions for you. So if anyone has any questions, feel free again to put it in the chat box.
And I'll just mention that Mr. O'Callahan is the kindergarten teacher at Northwood Elementary on Mercer Island here. And he came late in life to teaching, but is very passionate about his work and helping his students learn to love learning. And we've had the pleasure of having one of our children in his class, and maybe another will go as well. We'll see how that works out for us. So he is an expert as well that we can thank for being here and call on with questions. So maybe I'll kick things off with a question. As a parent who has a child with kind of a mid-year birthday, I often wonder, she's my youngest, and I often wonder, I feel like relative to her siblings, I worry she's not ready. What is your advice to someone who is not sure if their preschooler is ready to go?
Do any one of you specific like to answer that question? Vicki, Margaret, or Sean? Oh, you're on mute.
My experience so far is that any kid is kindergarten ready. It just can look so different for every child. And not to, I mean, I'm as neurotic as anybody, but I think that those opinions say more about us than the kids. Usually there's exceptions, of course, but I think you can mostly tack your boat by like, that's some us stuff and not some them stuff. And I mean that with a lot of love. I'm not, like I said, I love a good neurosis. I'm right there with you.
I definitely agree. You know, it's not looking at whether they're ready or not, but maybe what environment's best for them, whether it's, you know, private school or public school, or do they need smaller, you know, class sizes? So looking at those pieces of it, about what works best for them, but not whether they're ready for kindergarten.
Good
I
advice.
agree. And the only thing I would add is that trust yourself. You know your child better than anyone else, and trust your child. She will tell you in ways that are unexpected sometimes when we just notice what she's doing right now. And you will, I think, I love that Sean said, you know, that there's a place for everyone. But I also understand that worry and concern, that it's a common one. You're not alone. But I always go back, you just have that feeling, and you know. And ultimately, even when you get into a situation, there will still be challenges, and you will quickly say to yourself, oh, I made the wrong decision. That's one, not helpful, because you're already moving forward. And you also just want to give yourself credit for making a decision in the best possible way that you could and go with it. And as Sean said, there are certain circumstances that, you know, you might dig a little deeper to how to help that situation and maybe make a change. But for the most part, I think just working with your daughter, and as needed with the school, I mean, and teacher. It's a community. You're not alone.
That's what I was going to
Answer the
say.
question.
Too. If your child is in preschool, I know yours is, but not all of you may, is really partnering with the teachers and seeing what they think from the education perspective of what is best for your child.
Okay, so this question maybe will, if Melissa is up for answering, it might be best for her. Melissa from the Samus Foundation. The question is, what do you think are the biggest differences between public and private school? Maybe Melissa and Sean would like to chime in on that. Melissa, do you want to?
First of all, I'm babysitting my nephew, so for kindergarten in 2 years. So just getting ready. So it's a little bit noisy over here. So what was the question? What's the biggest difference between public and independent school?
Yeah.
I feel like I can talk about the day schools, but I'm not an expert on independent schools or public schools. I would say, hold on a second. I would say for Jewish day schools, you're really looking, you get the community and the one-to-one and a lot of individual attention. But basically it's the value proposition of being part of a Jewish community and getting Jewish education on top of that. I would say that, nationally, day schools have great outcomes, just, similar to public and independent schools. Hold on, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
So it's not, my kids are 25 and 22, so this is not the usual for us. So so that's really, and I think like in Seattle, we have 7 day schools of different affiliations. The ones represented here tonight, I think are good examples of some wonderful programs that we have. Oh, shoot, did I just lose everybody? I just lost everybody.
That's okay.
Okay.
Are you back, Melissa?
I'm sort of back, but I can't see you guys, so I'm not quite sure what's going on with my computer.
Okay.
But and one of the other things about Jewish day schools that are different than independent schools, I mean, public schools are free. Our tax dollars help support that. And we have some of the best public schools in the country. That's for sure. And independent schools are not free and day schools are not free. For the day schools, there's a value in making sure that every family can afford a Jewish day school education. And that is really what the mission of the Samus Foundation is. So scholarships, special initiatives, middle income affordability, so that you're bringing down the cost of really what is an independent school education to make it attainable for as many families as possible. And that's something I'm not sure that everybody in the community really understands, that it's not just about scholarship needs, it's about, affordability across the spectrum. So,
all right.
And I'd like to add before Sean can chime in, one of the other big differences, and like you said, Mercer Island has amazing programming, is the small class sizes. In a typical elementary school, and Sean can speak to this, I believe there's between 20 and 30 from my experience as children, where I know at my children went to a private school, and then we have kindergarten here, it's more one teacher to 10 or 15 children. And so having those less children allows you to differentiate and scaffold the curriculum in a way that public school may not have that ability to do, having so many children. That's not to say it doesn't happen, but it's really based on the wonderful teachers that you get and the children that are in the classroom as to whether that's able to happen. So I don't know, Sean, if you want to chime in.
I know nothing about private school. I grew up super poor, and I didn't even learn to read and write until pretty late in life. So I know zero about private school.
So tell us, what's your perspective about, what in kindergarten in Mercer Island, what's the student to teacher ratio typically?
I'm at 22 right now, and I believe all 3 of our classes are.
Okay. Okay.
And that works
great.
that works great for most children. But then when you have children that, you know, like Jenna was speaking of, that you're a little bit more worried about, or especially with COVID now, being able to have those smaller class sizes and that more individual attention may be what they need, and it may not be, right? There's pros and cons to both sides of everything. So.
Okay, so we have another question here. What are some of the best ways to facilitate conversation with your child about what to anticipate in kindergarten that can provide support with them without maybe over talking and adding nerves that they may not have?
Margaret,
so Vicki, I wonder,
the right one to answer for that, being a pre-K teacher.
Sure. And that is a fantastic question, actually, because I feel like sometimes as adults, we have this adult context and we kind of cloud and make our children nervous. So awesome that you are on top of it and aware. I would encourage you to get some literature for your kiddo, books about kindergarten. It's a very casual way to kind of just approach this new journey. It's one of the biggest changes that a small child experiences. It's one of the first ones. So definitely get some books. We can give you some more information if you need some book recommendations. I have a few. Aside from that, just kind of keeping the conversation casual, you know, framing it as something that everybody does. It's a part of your journey. Journey is a big thing in our school, so they will be familiar with that word. Talking about who might be in their school, how it's nice to make new friends, how sometimes we can be a little nervous when we make new friends, but again, that change is normal and it's scary, and just kind of maybe sharing when you went through a big change and how you felt, and again, just partnering with your child and validating those feelings and being vulnerable and opening that vulnerability to them.
And then also talking about all the wonderful things they're going to experience at their new school. Although they're going to miss a lot of things, you know, that they currently have, all these wonderful opportunities that are going to come about that they haven't been able to have in the past. And I know our pre-K teachers too, and I'm assuming it's the same at other schools too, talk about it a lot with the children towards the springtime as they start to get anxious and think about the transition to their new school.
Vicki, did you have anything to add?
I would just add a couple of things. One, I love Margaret's idea about the books. I also, because this has come up with going to the doctor, all these types of things, that I recommend putting the books out with their other books rather than you bringing it forward so that they can discover, and then you can have a conversation with them being the initiator to talk about it. And I agree about that there are going to be so many exciting things. It's like, and I know we talk about this, you know, at school when children from the very youngest age are coming the first time. Oh, you're going to have a great time. We don't want to make those assumptions for them. They're going to have the kind of day that they're going to have, and we want to hear about that day, not what they're expecting. I love the idea too of talking about Margaret's point about talking about their own experiences. I think telling the story about your kindergarten, highlighting what you experienced realistically and authentically, but maybe highlighting things that you really enjoyed, but maybe throwing in something, because we all had that. I personally, I didn't go to kindergarten because my mother didn't want to separate from me. I was the baby and the only girl. And I still feel like I was cheated of that opportunity. I turned out, I think, pretty okay, even though I missed that great journey. But I remember thinking about, oh, what I had missed. So there's, you know, you want to tell a story about your own experience. And if you have any pictures of yourself at that age, those are wonderful things too. It's just that connection. And just being able to listen to when they mention it, and you can let them take the lead. I think that's always a really opportunity to learn what they might be thinking or feeling or doing right now concerning the next adventure. It's a great question.
I love that idea of sharing pictures from that time.
I also think if you have older siblings, which I know, Diana, you don't, getting the older siblings involved to talk to them about their experiences and how exciting it's going to be is always a good way to do it as well.
So are there any other questions? You can type them in the chat, or you're welcome to just unmute yourself and ask if you have other questions.
Well, if you do have other questions, Jenna will share the resources of all the people that were present. For those of you that have children here, you can always reach out to myself or Margaret, whether it's about being, school ready or about our program itself. We're all available and willing to help, support you and your child however we can in their journey. So.
And before we log off, I just really like to give a big thank you to Samus for sponsoring this evening, and also to our guests, Mr. O'Callahan, I'm sorry, we're not going to sign off yet. Sarah has a question. How important is the continuity of kindergarten to first grade in the same school?
I mean, I can just speak on our side, and then anyone else is more than willing to speak up. I think you can look at it in a number of ways. It could be the continuity from keeping from your pre-K to your kindergarten program and then transitioning, from first grade and beyond. So you can look at it either way. Obviously, if you're at the same school for continuity, they can make friends early on and then continue with those children throughout the course of their educational journey. That's how I see it. And our perspective is, we have a lot of children that were in our pre-K program this year that went to our kindergarten program. So that eased their anxiety of going to kindergarten because they were with children that they already were friends with. So you can look at it from either side.
Sean, do you have thoughts?
Oh, just that it's one of those questions there's probably no formula for. Some children may need the predictability of sameness, but for the most part, they're so agile and so supple and so ready to chew on a plethora of experiences that I think that for most people, most of the time, they would absolutely thrive with change. And maybe there's some exceptional cases where the continuity and familiarity is a food that they just can't stop eating.
Yeah, and I think that's well said on both those. And I do think temperament plays a part in it. For children who are slow to warm, might just need, as you said, if there's something that's really connecting, if they have a strong connection already, and they seem to be able to be really comfortable, it's certainly okay to get out of their comfort zone, but that slow to warm child really just, and I really don't like that it's slow to warm, because the thing I love about those children are they're great observers, and they know their environment and the children and the community like no one else. And so they really have that community, and they might just prefer that. On the other hand, it's also, there are so many reasons why you might choose that, and that needs to come into place. If you're thinking they need a change and you're going a great distance to get them there, or it's really compromising the whole family as a whole, that might not be the best fit, because that just adds stress to the entire family. So like everyone said, it just depends. And again, you know your child best, and you know what you want for your child. It's always helpful to visit both programs and see what they're like in action. I know during this particular time, those things are not possible in the way we'd like that, but just having a conversation. I do caution people to be careful of going on the opinions of others, even people who really have your best interest at heart. They have a different lens than you do, and what they think you might be best for you, only you and your child really know. So it's good to ask, but just be aware that you really have to take what others are saying from their lens, and it's not your lens. Great, another great question.
All right. So thank you everyone who joined us this evening. I think kind of got interrupted in my thank yous. Thank you to Samus for sponsoring. I would really like to extend a huge thank you to the schools that joined us in the beginning. And then also to our panelists, to Vicki, to Margaret, to Sean. Thank you so much for sharing your time and wisdom with us this evening. As a parent, I know I'm incredibly grateful for the expertise that you bring, because it can be a very challenging transition time. So I'm very grateful for your thoughts on this subject. So thank you, thank you. And for everyone who participated, we were going to send this out afterwards. We'll send you a link, and we'll also send information about the schools that were there, so that if you want to contact them afterwards, you're welcome to. And you'll also have the opportunity to share your information with any of the schools that you would like to reach out to you. Those are my parting words. Thank you. Thank you. Carrie, I don't know if you have anything else that you'd like to say.
You said it beautifully, so I appreciate it. And for those of you, again, that have children here, like everybody said, you know your children best, but we're here to support you and do what's best for your children, whether it's staying with us or moving on to another program. We all, at the end, just want what's best for the children. So.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. What's left of it. Bye.